On a winter evening in Colorado Springs, February 7, 1977, a 14-year-old girl was doing what countless teenagers had done before her. Maria Honzell was babysitting. It was a Monday night, ordinary in every way, until it became the night that would define her story for nearly half a century. Maria had agreed to watch two children for a neighbor who lived in the same apartment complex, the Suncrest Apartments on North Nevada Avenue. The children were young, just 6 and 8 years old. Everything seemed fine when their mother checked in earlier that evening. Maria assured her that all was well. The children were being good. There was no reason to worry. But when that mother returned home shortly after 11:20 that night, she walked into a scene that would haunt Colorado Springs for decades. Maria was lying in the master bedroom, deceased. She had been stabbed multiple times in the chest and neck. She was wearing a blue jumpsuit, the kind that was popular in the 70s. The two children she'd been caring for were found asleep in their beds, unharmed, unaware of the violence that had occurred while they slept. The Colorado Springs Police Department arrived within minutes of receiving the call, which had initially been reported as a possible suicide. But it became immediately clear this was something else entirely. The coroner's office would later confirm what officers already knew. Maria Honzell had been murdered. The wounds she sustained told a story of violence, of an attack that was personal and brutal. One prominent stab wound to the neck, multiple wounds to the chest. This was no accident, no random act. Someone had come to that apartment with intent. Detectives launched what they described as a thorough investigation. They conducted numerous interviews, collected evidence, filed countless reports. They examined every angle, every possibility. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, they could not identify a suspect. The case that had seemed so urgent, so immediate in those first hours, began to grow cold. Evidence was carefully preserved, files were maintained, but without a breakthrough, there was nowhere else to go. For Maria's family, the waiting began. Her brother David and the rest of their family lived with questions that had no answers. Who had taken Maria from them? Why had this happened to a girl who was simply trying to earn a little money babysitting? What had she witnessed or encountered in those final moments? The police had done everything they could with the tools available in 1977, but it wasn't enough. Not then. Years passed, a decade, 2 decades. The world changed around the Honzell family while their grief remained suspended in time. Technology advanced in ways that would have seemed impossible in 1977. Computers became household items, the internet connected the world, and in laboratories, scientists were making breakthroughs in understanding the very building blocks of human identity. DNA analysis, which had been in its infancy when Maria died, was becoming a powerful tool for law enforcement. The Colorado Springs Police Department never forgot about Maria Honzell. Her case remained open, her file never closed. As DNA technology progressed, detectives began submitting evidence from the case to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for analysis. Among the items was a bloodstain found on Maria's blue jumpsuit. Scientists were able to develop a male DNA profile from that stain, a genetic fingerprint left behind by someone who had been there that night. It was a major development, but when they ran it through the combined DNA index system, there was no match. They obtained samples from various potential suspects over the years, but none of them matched the profile. The answer was somewhere in that genetic code, but they couldn't find it. Then, in 2019, 42 years after Maria's murder, a new possibility emerged. The Colorado Springs Police Department reached out to Parabon Nanolabs, a company specializing in genetic genealogy DNA analysis. This wasn't traditional forensic DNA testing. This was something different, something that used public commercial DNA databases to build family trees and trace ancestry. The same technology that people used to find distant cousins and explore their heritage could be applied to identify unknown offenders in cold cases. The genetic data profile from the crime scene sample was submitted to a public genetic genealogy database. The goal was to find individuals who shared significant amounts of DNA with the unknown subject, people who might be relatives, even distant ones. When matches appeared, they became clues. Investigators began the painstaking work of traditional genealogy research. They constructed family trees going back to common ancestors using online databases, newspaper archives, public family trees, and obituaries. Then they worked forward, tracing descendants, narrowing possibilities, eliminating dead ends. The research was extensive, requiring patience and precision, but eventually a name emerged: William Charles Kernan, Jr., who went by Bill. He had been a student at a local college back in 1977. More significantly, he was an acquaintance of the woman Maria was babysitting for that night. The investigation revealed he had been to the apartment complex on prior occasions. He would have known the layout, known the family, perhaps even known when Maria would be alone with the children. But there was a problem. William Kernan had died in 2010, 33 years after Maria's murder. He had been cremated and had no living biological relatives, which meant confirmation DNA could not be collected. The investigators couldn't get the definitive match they wanted. They had to rely on the genetic genealogy results, the circumstantial evidence, and the investigative work that connected Kernan to the crime. The case was presented to the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office for review. After examining all the evidence, the genetic genealogy findings, and the investigative history, they reached a conclusion. The District Attorney's Office stated they were confident that William Charles Kernan, Jr. was the person responsible for the murder of Maria Honzell. On May 8, 2024, nearly 47 years after Maria's death, the Colorado Springs Police Department held a press conference. They announced that Maria's case was being closed. Because the suspect had died, it would be classified as exceptionally cleared due to death of offender. There would be no trial, no courtroom justice, no moment where Maria's family could face her killer and hear him answer for what he did. But there were answers. After 47 years of waiting, of wondering, of living with that terrible uncertainty, the Honzell family finally knew. David Honzell, Maria's brother, spoke about what this meant for the family. They had waited so long for justice, for some kind of resolution. While true justice might have meant seeing the person responsible held accountable in court, what they received was perhaps the next best thing. They knew the truth. They could stop wondering. Maria could finally rest in peace. The Colorado Springs Police Department thanked the numerous units and agencies that had provided assistance over the decades. They emphasized that all cold cases remain open in their department, and they continue to ask the public to come forward with information. Maria's case took 47 years to solve, but it was solved. The dedication of detectives who refused to forget, combined with advances in science that would have seemed like fiction in 1977, had finally brought answers to a family that never stopped hoping for them. Maria Lorraine Honzell was 14 years old when she died. She was just a girl trying to earn some money, helping out a neighbor, caring for children who needed watching. She deserved a full life. Decades of experiences, the chance to grow up and discover who she might become. Instead, she became a cold case, a file in a cabinet, a family's endless sorrow. But she also became something else. She became proof that time doesn't erase justice, that the pursuit of truth doesn't have a statute of limitations, and that sometimes, even after nearly half a century, the answers finally come. Monday, March 22, 1993, began as an ordinary day for Carmen Hope Van Huss. The 19-year-old spent the evening with her father and younger brother at Community Hospital South in Indianapolis, visiting her grandmother who was quite ill. They spent several hours together as a family, the kind of quiet, tender moments that families share when someone they love is struggling. When the visit ended, Carmen offered to drive her father and brother home to the south side of Indianapolis. It was getting late, around 10:30 at night. Her father asked if she wanted to stay over, but Carmen declined. She told him she needed to get home to her apartment. She had laundry to do, clothes she needed for her morning shift at Pizza Hut. Her father watched her drive away into the night. He had no way of knowing he would never see his daughter alive again. Carmen lived in the Turtle Creek North apartment complex on the north side of Indianapolis, near West 79th Street and Ditch Road. She shared the apartment with her boyfriend, but he was away in Arizona at the time. She arrived home around 11 that evening. Neighbors heard her return. They heard her voice in the hallway, laughing with an unidentified man. Some assumed it might be her boyfriend, but he was hundreds of miles away. Whoever this man was, he was someone else. The laughter suggested familiarity, comfort. Carmen wasn't afraid. She had no reason to be. But sometime in the early hours of March 23rd, everything changed. The apartment directly below Carmen's was occupied by another resident who would later tell police what he heard that night. Around 1:30 in the morning, he heard screams, he heard crying, he heard slamming and banging, the sounds of furniture being knocked over. He heard the voices of a male and female arguing, a confrontation that lasted approximately 30 minutes. Then he heard footsteps running down the hallway, someone fleeing the scene. Then, silence. Carmen didn't show up for her shift at Pizza Hut the next morning. When she failed to arrive, a concerned coworker called her father. He tried calling Carmen multiple times but got no answer. Growing worried, he drove to her apartment to check on her. The front door was unlocked. He walked inside and found his daughter on the floor. Carmen was naked. There was blood everywhere. Blood pooled near her head, blood spattered around her body. The scene told a story of violence and struggle. A table had been knocked over, clothing was thrown across the floor, and Carmen, his daughter, had been stabbed 61 times. The wounds covered her head, her face, her body. Investigators would later believe the weapons used were a pocket knife and a screwdriver. The Marion County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene and began their investigation. The coroner determined Carmen's cause of death was from stab wounds to the head and ruled her manner of death a homicide. The brutality was staggering. This wasn't a quick attack. This was sustained violence, personal and rage-filled. Someone had spent considerable time inflicting these wounds, someone who may have known her. Detectives collected DNA evidence from Carmen's body. They found blood on a paper bag in her apartment. They interviewed dozens of people. They followed up on hundreds of leads. They pursued every angle they could think of. But despite their efforts, despite the physical evidence, the case eventually went cold. The killer remained unidentified, free to live their life, while Carmen's family lived with an unbearable void. Carmen's younger brother Jimmy was a freshman in high school when his sister was murdered. He learned about her death in the worst possible way, turning on the news and seeing his father crying on television. The image of his father finding Carmen, seeing what had been done to her, haunted the family for decades. Jimmy would later say that his father was never the same after that day. How could he be? What father could witness such horror done to his child and remain unchanged? Years passed. Carmen's family waited for answers that never came. She had been studying art in college. She loved animals. She had her whole life ahead of her. She would never experience her college graduation. She would never have a wedding. She would never have any of life's milestones. She was frozen in time at 19 years old, while the world moved forward without her. In 2000, detectives made an effort to preserve the case by requesting that Carmen's DNA be added to state and national databases. In 2013, forensic scientists achieved a breakthrough. Using DNA from the paper bag found in Carmen's apartment, they developed a partial profile of a male suspect. They uploaded this profile to CODIS, the nationwide law enforcement DNA database, hoping for a match, but there was none. The person who killed Carmen was not in the system. The case remained cold for another 5 years. Then, in 2018, an Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department detective made a decision that would ultimately change everything.
The detectives submitted a DNA sample from the crime scene evidence to Parabon Nanolabs, a company specializing in genetic genealogy analysis. This was cutting-edge technology, using the same kind of DNA databases that people use to find relatives and explore their ancestry, but applying it to criminal investigations. The process took time. Genetic genealogy doesn't provide instant answers. It requires building family trees, tracing lineages, identifying distant relatives who may have voluntarily submitted their DNA to public databases. In 2023, 5 years after the DNA sample was submitted, investigators received information from the genetic genealogy analysis. Combined with traditional investigative methods, this analysis led them to a name: Dana Shepard. Further investigation revealed something startling. Dana Shepard had been Carmen Van Huss's neighbor in 1993. He lived in the same apartment complex. Their apartment buildings were connected internally by a shared common area. He would have known the layout. He would have known the residents. He would have had access. Investigators now believed that the man Carmen had been laughing with in the hallway that night, the man her neighbors had heard, was Dana Shepard. In February 2024, more than 31 years after Carmen's murder, authorities knocked on Dana Shepard's door in Columbia, Missouri, where he worked as a custodian at the University of Missouri. They presented him with a warrant to collect his DNA. According to the affidavit, Shepard was visibly shaken when police presented him with the warrant. 4 months later, the DNA results came back. It was a match to the evidence from Carmen's apartment. On August 30, 2024, Dana Shepard was arrested in Boone County, Missouri. He was charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of rape in connection with Carmen's death. After more than 30 decades, the man who had lived freely while Carmen's family suffered was finally in custody. On September 3rd, the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department held a press conference. Deputy Chief Kendale Adams addressed the media and the public. He spoke about the dedication and perseverance of the detectives who never gave up on Carmen's case. He spoke about the power of genetic genealogy and advanced analytics. He acknowledged that while nothing could ever replace Carmen or undo the trauma her family endured, he hoped the arrest would bring them some measure of peace. Carmen's younger brother Jimmy stood before reporters and spoke about her sister. He talked about how many people had missed Carmen over the years. She had family, friends, cousins who loved her like sisters. He talked about his father, who had died before Carmen's alleged killer was identified. His father never got to see justice for his daughter. Jimmy said the day was bittersweet because of that. He wished his father could have been there to witness the arrest, but he was grateful that finally, the man who did this was where he belonged. Dana Shepard was extradited back to Indiana. He appeared in court in November 2024 to face 2 counts of murder and 1 count of rape. He faces a maximum sentence of 105 years if convicted. His trial was scheduled for January 21, 2025. Dr. Ellen Graytack, the scientific leader for Parabon's Snapshot Division, commended the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department's efforts. She spoke about their proactive approach in utilizing advanced technologies, their dedication and innovative mindset. The work Parabon had done was able to support the investigative efforts that brought an end to one family's 31-year wait for answers. Carmen Van Huss was 19 years old when someone took her life in the most brutal way imaginable. For 31 years, her family lived with the weight of not knowing who had done this terrible thing. They endured the pain of her absence, the horror of how she died, and the frustration of watching her case grow cold while her killer walked free. But they also lived with hope. Hope that science would catch up to justice. Hope that the evidence carefully preserved would finally reveal its secrets. Hope that Carmen would not be forgotten. That hope was not misplaced. Advanced DNA technology, the dedication of detectives who refused to let the case die, and the power of genetic genealogy combined to do what seemed impossible for so long. Carmen's case is a testament to the fact that time does not erase the pursuit of justice, that even after 30 decades, the truth can still emerge, and that families who wait in the dark for answers may finally see the light.